Welcome back to Bible Shorts, episode 126, Paul's on Trial. In our last episode, we learned that after a riot had broken out in Jerusalem and Paul had been arrested, a Roman tribune had taken Paul to a meeting of the Jewish leadership, the Sanhedrin, to try to understand why this riot had broken out. But during this meeting, a big argument had broken out between the Sadducees and the Pharisees about whether or not the resurrection of the dead was a real thing, and Paul had been taken back to the soldiers' barracks to keep him safe. Then some of the Jews joined in a conspiracy to kill Paul. They went to the chief priests and elders and asked them to have Paul brought back before them again, but they would do away with him before he arrived. Now the son of Paul's sister heard about the ambush, so he went and gained entrance to the barracks and told Paul. Paul called one of the centurions and said, "Take this young man to the tribune, for he has something to report." So the centurion brought Paul to the tribune. The tribune took Paul's nephew by the hand, drew him aside privately, and asked, "What is it that you have to report to me?" He answered, "The Jews have decided to ask you to bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they were going to inquire more thoroughly into his case. But do not be persuaded by them, for more than 40 of their men are lying in ambush for him. They have bound themselves by an oath neither to eat nor drink until they kill him. They are ready now and are waiting for your consent." Then the tribune dismissed the young man, ordering him, "Tell no one that you have informed me about this." Then he summoned 2 of the centurions and said, "Get ready to leave by 9 o'clock tonight for Caesarea with 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen. Also, provide horses for Paul to ride and take him safely to Felix the governor." The tribune wrote a letter to Felix the governor. Claudius Lysis to His Excellency the Governor Felix. Greetings. This man was seized by the Jews and was about to be killed by them. But when I had learned that he was a Roman citizen, I came with the guard and rescued him. Since I wanted to know the charge for which they had accused him, I had him brought to their council. I found that he was accused concerning questions of their law, but was charged with nothing deserving death or imprisonment. When I was informed that there would be a plot against the man, I decided to send him to you, and have ordered his accusers also to come before you to explain what they have against him. So the soldiers, according to their instructions, took Paul and brought him during the night to Antipatris. The next day they let the horsemen go on with him to Caesarea, while they returned to Jerusalem to barracks. The letter was given to Felix, and Paul was brought before him. On reading the letter, Felix asked what province Paul belonged to, and when he learned that he was from Cilicia, he said, "I will give you a hearing when your accusers arrive." Then he ordered that Paul be kept under guard in Herod's headquarters. 5 days later, the high priest came down to Caesarea with some elders and an attorney, a man called Tertullus, and they reported their case against Paul to the governor. When Paul had been summoned, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, "Because of you, most excellent Felix, we have long enjoyed peace, and reforms have been made for this people because of your foresight. In every way and everywhere we welcome this with utmost gratitude. But to detain you no further, I beg you to hear us briefly with your customary graciousness. We have in fact found this man a pestilent fellow, an agitator among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. He even tried to profane the temple, so we seized him. By examining him yourself, you will be able to learn from him concerning everything of which we accuse him. The high priest and the Jewish elders also joined in the charge by asserting that all of this was true. When the governor motioned him to speak, Paul replied, "I cheerfully make my defense, knowing that for many years you have been a judge over this people. As you can find out, it's not more than 12 days since I went up to worship in Jerusalem. They did not find me disputing with anyone in the temple or stirring up a crowd either in the synagogue or throughout the city. Neither can they prove to you the charge that they are now bringing against me. But this I do admit to you, that according to the way I worship the God of our ancestors, believing everything laid down according to the law or written in the prophets." Now after some years I came to bring alms to my people and to offer sacrifices. While I was doing this, they found me in the temple without any crowd or disturbance, but there were some Jews from Asia. They ought to be here before you to make an accusation if they have anything against me. Or let these men here tell what crime they had found when I stood before the council, unless was this one sentence that I called out while standing before them. It is about the resurrection of the dead that I am on trial before you today. But Felix, who was rather well informed about the way, adjourned the hearing with the comment, "When Lysias the tribune comes down, I will decide your case." Then he ordered the centurion to keep Paul in custody, but to let him have some liberty, and not to prevent any of his friends from taking care of his needs. Some days later, Felix, along with his wife Drusilla, who was Jewish, sent for Paul and heard him speak concerning faith in Christ Jesus. And as Paul discussed justice, self-control, and the coming judgment, Felix became frightened and said, "Go away for the present. When I have an opportunity, I will send for you." At the same time, he hoped that money would be given him by Paul, and for that reason, he used to send for him very often and converse with him. But he did not release Paul. After 2 whole years had passed, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus as governor, and since he wanted to grant the Jews a favor, Felix left Paul in prison. Then, 3 days after Porcius had arrived in the province, he went to Jerusalem, where the chief priests and the leaders of the Jews gave him a report against Paul. They appealed to him and requested as a favor to them to have Paul transferred to Jerusalem. They were, in fact, planning an ambush to kill him along the way. Festus replied that Paul was being kept at Caesarea and said, "Let those of you who have the authority come down with me, and if there is anything wrong about the man, let them accuse him." Then, when Festus was back in Caesarea, he ordered Paul to be brought before him, along with the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem as well. And they surrounded Paul, bringing many serious charges against him, which they could not prove. Paul said in his defense, "I have in no way committed an offense against the law of the Jews or against the temple or against the emperor." But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, asked Paul, "Do you wish to go up to Jerusalem and be tried there before me on these charges?" Paul said, "I'm standing before the emperor's tribunal. This is where I should be tried. I have done no wrong to the Jews, as you very well know." Now, if I am in the wrong and have committed something for which I deserve to die, I'm not trying to escape death. But if there is nothing to their charges against me, no one can turn me over to them. I appeal to the emperor." Then Festus, after he had conferred with his council, replied, "You have appealed to the emperor. To the emperor you will go." What happens next? Look for Bible Shorts episode 127. Festus consults King Agrippa.